Are you talking to us, Colin?
Good evening, everyone. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
We're doing good.
Good. Good to see you. Good to hear you. Well, we're trying something new tonight. Kelly is in City Hall and, in council chambers, and we're broadcasting this on MCAT. So thanks. It's also live on YouTube. You'll see that on the top left. So it is being recorded. So Kelly, thanks so much for making that possible. I'm at home watching a baby monitor. So I apologize if anything pops up. Mr. Painter, Mike knows, witnessed that, I think, yesterday, that I had to juggle a baby in a meeting. So I'll do my best. We'll give people a few minutes to trickle in, and then we'll get going. All right.
Colin, that was fabulous yesterday, so thank you very much.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I do think it's the best baby meeting juggling I've done yet. So I appreciate the kudos. I know you have experience.
Very first time we started a neighborhood council leadership team meeting with the phrase, "I need to get a toy."
Yeah. Maybe the last. I don't. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Colin, I wonder if you could ask a couple people who may not have their microphones muted to mute, because there's clearly some background noise coming out of somewhere.
That is a good call. Thank you, Ray. Yes. Yeah. I guess for quality, noise quality, if you're able to be on camera, great. If you're not able to be camera, that's okay. We've all been on a lot of Zooms and certainly understand that. But if you are not presenting or asking a question, if you could be on mute, I suppose that's best, unless we're in the middle of a discussion. And then please feel ready to participate and unmute, and we'll just have a dialogue when we have discussions. Certainly. Well, we'll give it, I'm tempted to give just people one more minute to hop on. And okay, well, we are waiting for, I'm going to send a quick message to Ben Weiss, and I know we are waiting for Heidi as well. Oh, I have text messages from Heidi. Okay. We're slowly gaining ground, and with that, got both our presenter and Heidi West will be joining us. So sorry for the delay here. What we'll do is we'll start with a review of our agenda, and from there we'll go through and get going. Okay. All right. So tonight's meeting, we are planning for about an hour and a half, although depending on how quickly we may be able to get through that. We'll go through roll call, do introductions. We will establish quorum, approve meeting minutes from March 25th. We have a presentation. Ben Weiss is going to present the Neighborhood Transportation Management Plan program that he presented to City Council in mid-April, and is presented to the Franklin to the Fort leadership team as well this past week. We'll discuss the bylaws and the development of the orientation packets and some how-to guides, and the reworking of our website. So toolkits that we've been discussing, I've been discussing with leadership teams for quite a while, and we are starting to. We have a draft to send out to leadership teams. We have no discussion items, and from there we're going to talk about. I'm going to make a request. We're going to talk about the community forum's remaining funds. There are still $3,200 of funds available. And then finally, we'll get into some Missoula neighborhoods work. With that, I think it's time. Anthony, I saw your hand pop up, and I know we do also have to do some introductions. Anthony, do you want to?
Hey, Colin, is there any way that we could move up the voted item before the presentations?
Yeah, I think we can. I think that's a fine. Is there?
Because I might have to leave in mid-meeting.
Okay. Well, we'll start with Ben Weiss as he hops on. Although we don't have Ben Weiss on, so we don't have Ben. Okay. Sorry, you guys. I guess we're troubleshooting, trying to get Ben on. He was not able to join. Okay, I'm gonna send him one more attempt here, and we'll see if we can get him on. Okay. All right. Well, let's start with introductions. My apologies for this delay. I apologize. I'm trying to multitask, and I guess I'm better at juggling babies than Zoom etiquette and this. So what we'll do is we'll just go around. If you can just introduce your full name and the neighborhood that you're a part of and why you love Missoula. If keep it brief. We'll just try and keep it brief. And then we'll just popcorn this. So you pass it, pass the mic to the next person who you know you want to start with. So I'll just lead off with an example. I'm Colin Woodrow with Missoula Neighborhoods. I live on the north side. I love Missoula because I believe it's a welcoming place for all kinds of people. With that, I'm going to pass the ball to Ray Ayton.
Ray Ayton, Farview's Patty Canyon Neighborhood Council. I love Missoula for all its many seasons. There's clearly more than 4. And let's go to Robert Schultz.
Robert Schultz, Lower Rattlesnake neighborhood. I think I love Missoula for 3 out of the 4 seasons.
I'm Bert Littler. Nobody passed it to me, but I'll speak. I'm from Grant Creek, and I love Missoula's open space. And I'll pass it to Colleen Beal.
Colleen Beal, and I'm from Lewis and Clark, and I just love springtime and summer. It's great to be here.
I got somebody who's gonna go soon, but wants to say hi. What do you love about Missoula, bud? Well, first say your name. That's what we're supposed to do. What's your name?
I'm Alice.
What do you love about Missoula? You gotta go fast.
As parks.
That's great. Perfect. My name's Leah. We live in the heart of Missoula, and we love it here. Our family's here, and I think ultimately that's probably what we love the most. I'm gonna pick Jennifer Copley, who I took government from in high school.
Jennifer, we'll hear you once you unmute.
She's still muted.
Okay, I'm Jennifer Copley from the University District. I love the Molly program at the University of Montana. Right now I most love Missoula because of the flocks of grosbecs and pine siskins who've invaded my backyard. Next, let's see, Ray, have you done it? And Robert?
I'll pick up the mic next. My name is Anthony Joe, and I'm representing the Captain John Mullen neighborhood. And I love Missoula because the city, has been kind to me over these years. It's very welcoming, and it's very, although the winters can be cold, it's actually pretty warm as far as the folks. And next, I'm gonna pick on Mike Painter.
Anthony, my name is Mike Painter. I live in Rose Park, and one of the biggest reasons I love Missoula is because they offer us an opportunity like this one to participate in our local government. So thank you very much.
And oh yeah, Mike, if you can pass it, that'd be great.
Yes, and I'll pass it on to Jack Walton.
I'm Jack Walton, and I represent the Miller Creek neighborhood. What I like about Missoula, I grew up close to here, Saltese, so that's what I like, being close to the mountains. And I passed on to, let's see, how about Randall?
Hi, I'm Randall Gunn, North Side, West Side. I love the weather the past few days. It's been really nice. Who's left? Robert Schultz. Did Robert go?
Carol Garlington. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Carol Garlington from Moose Can Gully. And I love Missoula for all the hiking trails.
Perfect. Okay, I think we have covered everyone. Ben, you'll be presenting, so we'll get to you. We'll get to you then. All right. Well, we will. So we've done our introductions. I'll pull this up here. We've done roll call introductions, determination of quorum. We do have a quorum tonight. Approval of minutes. Has anyone had a chance to take a look at our March 25th meeting minutes? Here's who was present, other folks present. Just a quick run through. We discussed grants, neighborhood cleanups, of which we had 9 neighborhoods participate. We discussed the assessment follow-up, some updates on budgeting, and some city council updates. Then we had some discussion following that. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes or any edits or alterations?
President Walton, Miller Creek, I recommend that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you. We've got a second with Jennifer Copley. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. Pushing on. We've approved our minutes. Our next, we'll turn it over to Ben Weiss, who's going to give us a presentation about the neighborhood transportation management plan. And Ben, I'm going to make, I think do you have the ability to be a co-host?
I think well, let's see. Can I share my screen? Host is disabled participant screen sharing. So I think you need to make me a co-host maybe.
Oh, I see ya.
And I don't seem to have that option. Kelly, you are operating Zoom, I believe. Can you please make Ben a, yeah.
I am the co-host now. All right, let's see.
Thank
Hey,
you.
this seems like it's going to work. Are people seeing my screen? Are they seeing a presentation right now?
Yes.
Yes.
A big yellow box, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, Colin, there's an issue with putting acronyms in the agenda, and you didn't get it quite right. I'm here to talk about the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. We'll get into, it's a lot of information I have to share, and so I'm going to move quickly in respect for everybody's time. If people have questions or comments or anything, stop me, interrupt, flag me down. I'm not looking at your faces necessarily while I'm sharing this. So maybe Colin or just interrupt me and let me know if you have any questions. So City Council last July asked staff to look into speed limits and how we set them. There are several cities around the country that were making news for reducing their speed limits citywide on local streets, not on the busy arterials, but on the neighborhood streets. Mostly larger cities, but some smaller cities, Boulder, Colorado, and there's one in New Mexico I'm forgetting right now, but a few smaller cities basically they reduced their citywide speed limits to 20 miles an hour unless otherwise posted. So our council said, hey, can we do that too? Can you look into the pros and cons of doing something like that? And if we can. And so we're going to talk about what we found in that research. We're going to go over some national trends, talk about speeding in Missoula, and then finally how we've developed a neighborhood traffic management program. So the number one goal in this whole conversation, keep in mind, is safety. And we have a safety plan that highlights our need to focus on intersection crashes, non-motorized crashes, and risky behaviors, such as speeding, intoxicated driving, unbelted occupants, and distracted driving. Those three issues, intersections, non-motorized, and risky behaviors, they make up the bulk of the crashes that we see in Missoula. Vision Zero is a policy that's adopted at the federal, state, and local levels. The basic premise of that is that people are going to make mistakes when they move about, but those mistakes should not be life-threatening or fatal. They shouldn't seriously injure you. And finally, we have a long-range transportation plan. There's going to be so many acronyms. The LRTP is the long-range transportation plan that looks at Missoula 30 years into the future and says, what is the population going to be? What is our transportation funding going to look like in that time? And how can we ensure that people can get around as best as possible within that limited amount of money? The way that we are thinking about that, because there's not enough money to build enough roads for everybody to drive, and even if we could, I don't know that any of us would want to live there. There'd just be highways and parking lots everywhere, and there wouldn't be open space and the buildings that we all enjoy. And so we have basically, to help deal with the growth that we're seeing, we need to triple the percentages of people biking and walking and quadruple the percentages of people using transit in order to keep traffic from overwhelming us. And one of the cheapest, easiest, and fastest ways to do that is by utilizing a network of what we're calling neighborhood greenways. These are local streets that don't see a lot of traffic today that we can prioritize for biking and walking without having to spend a lot of money on fancy bike lanes or even sidewalks, really, because if you don't have many cars, then you can walk in the middle of the street on those. And I have more information about neighborhood greenways. If you're not familiar with that concept, I have presented on those at Community Forum, but it's been a few years. Another thing to keep in mind is that citizens complain about speed and speeding in their neighborhoods. It's probably the most frequent complaint that I see in my office. I'm the transportation planner for the city. And council members certainly hear a lot of complaints. And the way that we dealt with it before is that we had a traffic calming program that was citizen initiated. It was kind of onerous to fill out and expensive. Even if you got through the application process, the bulk of the costs associated with installing traffic calming were put on the neighbors. And so you had to recruit all of the people in your neighborhood to agree to add more money to your taxes to put in a traffic circle. And as a result, we only really have traffic calming in the neighborhoods that have the resources, the time and the money to be able to follow through with that process. Another thing that we hear is, well, people are speeding, and we go out and count the speeds and find that people are going about 25 miles an hour. They say, well, 25 is too fast for my street. And we wanted to look closer and say, well, is that a valid concern? It might be. So when we look at national issues, traffic crashes after years and years of falling are on the rise nationally, and pedestrian fatalities have been growing the most in the last 10 years. And so they really have been climbing a lot, as this graph shows, to levels that we haven't seen since the 70s and 80s. And the United States is one of the only developed countries in the world where traffic crashes and traffic fatalities are increasing. They're on the rise again, whereas a lot of other industrialized countries are dealing with that.
Hey, Ben?
Oh, yes.
This is Marty, and you're showing your Dev Home login screen, and we can't see your presentation. Can you start your share again, please?
Yeah, let me.
Thank you.
Okay, I asked if people could see what I was looking at. I thought that they could. Let me. Thanks for intervening, Marty. All right, is everyone seeing this now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, okay. Thank you. So I've made it through a few slides already. So we'll be very quick with our backtracking. So here is the graph that I was talking about. You're probably all scratching your heads like, what do you mean they're on the rise? So yeah, pedestrian fatalities are rising. Our traffic fatalities in general are rising, and we're the only industrialized country in the world where that is happening. And pedestrians are dying at a faster rate. The rate of pedestrians being killed is growing faster than the rate of motorists. And there's several reasons why. One is that drivers traveling at higher speeds, they travel further before they can react, and their braking distances are longer. So speed is an issue with that fatality rate. It also is an increased force, and your field of vision is narrowed as you're going faster. As far as pedestrians go, the front end profiles of cars are getting bigger, and they're getting more popular. I saw a statistic that Ford F-150s are, the size is like 33% bigger than it was 20 years ago, and 1 in 16 vehicles sold is a Ford F-150. And so it's pretty, you just can't see over the front of your vehicle anymore. At the risk factor is exponential. It's not linear. So at 20 miles an hour, if you're hit by a car at 20 miles an hour, you have a better than 90% chance of surviving that collision. If you're hit at 40 miles an hour, you have a 20% chance of surviving that collision. There's a factor right above 25 miles an hour where it really goes, where it really increases your fatality risk. In Missoula, we're seeing a rise in total crashes. So our fatal and serious crashes are staying about the same or even going down, but our total crashes are rising to the point that we have over 2,500 crashes a year happening in Missoula every year. So that's like 9 a day, something like that, eight or 9 crashes a day happening throughout the city. Of those, about a third of them take place on our local neighborhood streets. The rest take place on the main roads. We're also seeing a rise in speed-related crashes over the years. And so of those, nearly half of them are occurring on local streets. Also of note is that speed-related means above the posted speed limit or driving too fast for conditions. Now, it's arguable that any crash that happens is a result of driving too fast for the conditions because you didn't have time to react and prevent the crash. And this adds up to an incredible cost. Crashes cost Missoula $475 million a year in wage losses, medical administrative expenses, property damage, and insurance costs. That doesn't even factor in the loss of life that is kind of priceless. Why do people speed? There are some universal psychological factors. There's no real stigma associated with speeding. We think of speed limit as the speed that you should be driving, not the maximum speed that that is safe for the conditions. And if someone's driving below the speed limit, we get mad at them and think, gee, why is this person holding me up? There's a time-saving fallacy. We think that if you drive faster that you save time, but that time is measured in seconds within city limits, and it's often erased at your next red light that you have to stop at. And so there's really no benefit. There's also brain development and age. Younger people are more likely to drive faster, and as a result get in speeding related crashes. Roadway design also plays a major factor in why people speed. For a long time, the last 50 or 60 years, we've been following design manuals. Engineers have been designing streets based on what was proven to work on highways, and we've been applying those same principles on our urban streets. And so we have this cyclical relationship between what's called design speed and posted speed, where when we're building a road, we think about how fast people are likely going to travel on it, and then we build the road to make it safe for them to travel that fast or even a little bit faster. And then we sign the street for a speed limit based on how people are actually using it. And so it's why sometimes when you're driving somewhere, when you're headed down to Florence, say, and you're on the highway and the speed limit all of a sudden goes from 70 to 45, but nothing has changed in the roadway design and everyone's going faster than the speed limit, that's why, because people designed the road to accommodate you going 70 miles an hour. And so when the speed limit is 45, it feels artificial. So roadway design plays a major part in your kind of psychological understanding of how fast you should go. Things like side friction, this is a little counterintuitive, parked cars, people walking around, a bunch of busy signs and everything. We think, gee, this is risky, it must be dangerous. But the irony is that all of those things force you to pay more attention. And as a result, those streets are actually safer when they're narrower, when there's more going on the street. New development is often wide open. And so that also encourages higher speeds. Street width, again, is a big part of that. If the street is wide open and there's no side friction, you just think that you can go faster. In Missoula, we certainly, being kind of a post-war city, we have a lot of wide streets. We also have uncontrolled intersections, and people who lived here for a long time maybe don't think much of them, but I hear from a lot of new people to town that they've never seen an uncontrolled intersection before. When they come up to an intersection, they think that, gee, if I don't have a stop sign, then the other direction must be stopped. And so there's confusion then when they get there and both directions don't stop. Large truck traffic is a fact of life on a lot of our neighborhood streets. While we do have specified truck routes and trucks are not supposed to be using our neighborhood streets to cut through, moving trucks, delivery vehicles, emergency vehicles are all using our every street that they need to. There's also pockets of industrial areas that need that have a lot of truck traffic. Anyone who lives near the railroad tracks on the west side knows that there are businesses that have a lot of large truck traffic going in and out of those. We have a lack of consistent and connected bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. Sidewalks start and stop, bike lanes do too. That makes it, it puts people, just makes the situation less predictable for how to get around. Changing weather and sudden shade conditions also play a role in safety. Not only the known ones like snow, blowing snow and rain and ice and things like that, but even in the fall and winter, or fall and spring, at our really nice times in the shoulder seasons, right at rush hour, the sun is on the horizon in such a way that it casts long shadows and can be right in your eyes either in the morning or evening commute, depending on which direction you're headed. And then our neighborhood greenways, like we mentioned, we're trying to prioritize some of our local streets for bicycle and pedestrian travel, and that's much slower than 20 miles or 25 miles an hour. So that all leads to the conclusion that we came to is that 25 miles per hour is an inappropriate travel speed for some of our low volume urban streets. It's just too fast. So we looked at that and said, well, what can we do? How do we reduce speed limits? How do we reduce speeds? Can we lower the speed limits? Interestingly, a national transportation officials organization put out a guideline this past summer on how to do just that. They found that studying these blanket speed limit reductions all over North America found them to be very effective, relatively low cost, but they're not feasible. We can't do that in Missoula due to state laws that prohibit local jurisdictions from setting speed limits lower than 25 miles an hour unless you do a study on that specific street. What about engineering and design? I mentioned that roadway design contributes to how fast we go, and traffic calming techniques are very effective, but the process, like I mentioned, has been historically onerous, inequitable, and cost prohibitive, and the city certainly doesn't have the money to go and rebuild all of our streets. You can tell from the state of repair that they're in. We barely have money to maintain them, let alone change the curb lines and things like that. One thing I hear a lot is, well, just get the cops out there. Let's do more enforcement. And what the research shows is that additional traffic enforcement is not very effective. While it certainly works on the person who's pulled over, at least for a while, it's only in that one spot and at that one time where that's being effective. Larger cities have also found that additional traffic enforcement has been used as a pretense to pull over people of color more frequently. And it's also potentially harmful to low income and cost burdened households. Again, people who can get out of tickets typically do, and people who can't don't, and that continues to perpetuate inequities throughout the system. But perhaps most importantly to Missoula, it's just infeasible with our current funding and resource allocation. Our traffic unit of our police department has 2.5 people in it for the entire city for the entire week. And so that's just not enough to do effective traffic enforcement. The other thing we hear is education and encouragement campaigns. What about safety campaigns led by the people? Things to 20 is plenty is a slogan that has been taken up in hundreds of communities around the country, and they certainly are helpful and can be part of a system to reduce travel speeds, but they're not super effective on their own without other pieces of the puzzle in place. It's also difficult to evaluate their effectiveness, and it's difficult to ensure equity. Again, the neighborhoods that have the time to put into something like this are going to see more results from the neighborhoods that don't. So how do we do it if these all have their limitations? We do all of them together, and that's where the neighborhood traffic management program comes in. So this program is, again, we're only looking at locally owned residential streets. We're not talking about all of the main streets in town, from Reserve, Broadway, Russell, Higgins, Orange, 3rd, Stevens, 5th and 6th, Brooks. There's more. All of those are owned and maintained by the Montana Department of Transportation. So we're only talking about neighborhood streets with this program. We've convened an interdepartmental work team to develop this. The program is coordinated through our other existing programs. CIP in the lower left there is our capital improvement program. That's kind of how council and the administration fund major roadway projects. TST is our traffic services or transportation safety team. That is mostly public works staff, but we get together bi-weekly to talk about the sorts of issues that arise around transportation safety. We've developed a workflow to be both proactive in implementing our neighborhood greenways and reactive to citizen complaints. We're using the 6 E's of transportation safety. That's engineering, education, enforcement, encouragement, evaluation, and equity. We're using kind of looking at the whole program through a lens of equity. And this whole program is data driven. We're really, we have access to more data, and so we're able to collect it. And so we're trying to use that to guide our decision making. I mentioned the 6 E's, and here's a slide with more about those. I'm going to really try and keep going quickly. Anyone has questions, just interrupt. So I mentioned that we're talking about local neighborhood streets, and we are trying to we recognize that not all local neighborhood streets are the same. And so I mentioned that some are neighborhood greenways that we're prioritizing for people of all ages and abilities to bike and walk safely, comfortably, and conveniently. We have local streets that are, we want to be safe and comfortable for all users. And then we also have residential collectors. And these are streets like Beckwith or Johnson or Paxson in the Southgate Triangle neighborhood, Phillips in the west side, streets that are through streets for motor vehicles that carry a lot of traffic and that need to be clear and open for emergency response and to move traffic, especially at rush hour, but they still need to be comfortable for residents and most people who are biking and walking. But we realize that these streets that function differently, we need to set different operational goals for them. And so we have different speed targets for those. We want neighborhood greenways to be 15 miles an hour. And again, that doesn't mean necessarily that they will be signed at 15 miles an hour, but that's how fast we want the majority of drivers to be going on them. Fewer than 1,000 cars per day. We also want as few stop signs as possible along our neighborhood greenways so they're convenient to bike on. And then we also want to consider wayfinding elements, again, getting at those mode split goals of having more people biking and walking. If you're used to driving on Brooks, you might not know how to get through the neighborhoods to get the same places that you're going because they're just off your beaten path. So wayfinding means those types of signs and markings that will help you find your way. Local streets can be a little bit faster, but they still need to be low volume. Stop signs are perfectly acceptable along local streets, but we also want to make sure that we're coordinating with transit because both Mountain Line and Beach are apt to have stops on local streets in places. And then residential collectors, again, will tolerate higher speeds and higher volumes. We don't want stop signs unless their collector is meeting a busier street. For example, where Phillips hits Scott Street in the west side, that's a place where Phillips has stopped. We also, those streets, because they're busier and faster, sidewalks, we're prioritizing installing sidewalks on those streets if they're not there already, and bike lanes are strongly recommended there as well. So what does this program look like? The engineering side means traffic calming. And I mentioned that we've done, historically, the process has been onerous and expensive. We're trying to reduce those burdens and make it quick and cheap. And so we're using quick build techniques. So this circle that you see there, that's in, I believe that's on Franklin Street in the Slant Streets neighborhood. And that was installed last year just using signs, some planter boxes, some plastic delineators, and paint. And that circle costs about, I want to say 5% or less of the cost of one of the circles that you see in the University District. Those circles today, with all of the ADA requirements and engineering that needs to go into those circles cost about 20 grand each. This circle costs about 500 bucks, not even. So there's a huge difference there that we can do things like this within our existing operated budgets. The other benefit of this type of quick build project is that it's flexible. We can learn from it. If we don't get it quite right, we didn't make a huge investment. We don't have to dig up the road to redo it. We have to erase some lines and repaint them and move some signs. They also offer opportunities to paint within them and help establish a sense of community and neighborhood pride. One of the circles on Franklin Street has some painting, some additional hexagons have been painted in it. Neighbors have come out and added additional flowers to the planter boxes. And we did a similar project like this on Maurice in the University District, and a neighbor came out and painted a giant mandala or Spanish tile, I forget which, but a design taking up the entirety of the inside of the circle. And it really looks great. It was, we had received some complaints about the aesthetics of that one, and then she took it upon herself to go out there and address that, and it looks great. There's a kind of public and private interest here. You know, we're doing admittedly kind of the minimum to be effective, but the hope is that the public can come in and make these nicer. We're also able to do these in a lot of historically underserved parts of town. Now, I mentioned the slant streets in the University District. You might not think those are the places where we could be most equitable. Those places were selected last year for because of high crash incidences along both of those corridors. And so we had a specific problem to address. It was kind of a test run to see if these quick build circles would work, and they did. And so now we're getting ready to roll this program out into some of our Invest Health neighborhoods. Most specifically, our first project we're looking at is in the Franklin and the Fort neighborhood coming up in a couple weeks. And then these projects may inform best practices for later efforts, so that when we do come in with a sidewalk project, and we can make these permanent and really have the design well. The other E, another E I mentioned is education. We have speed trailers that we can bring out to let people know how fast they're going. We deploy these kind of all over town. We have 2 or 3 of them that we can put out, and we move them around every couple weeks. There are a couple permanent ones in town, and I can get into the details of how effective or not effective those are, depending on their location. The ones we have around town meet most of the criteria for being effective. It's arguable if they are, but certainly in limited time when we bring the trailers out, they're effective while we have them. We're also coordinating with this program. We're coordinating with PD. I mentioned there's only 2.5 full-time officers working traffic, but we're able to, by keeping each other in the loop about where we get complaints, we're able to help make the best use of their limited time and get them out in places where they can be effective at doing some enforcement. We have the Engage Missoula website up and running for this program. And so, Colin, maybe you can drop that in the links while I'm talking or in the chat. But there's an Engage Missoula website to learn more about this program and how we're doing it. And hopefully we're going to be rolling out some public service announcements. Some neighbors might be putting out yard signs and helping write speed pledges or letters to their neighbors, that sort of thing as well. I mentioned enforcement already, but again, we're looking at speed limit reductions in some locations. We're going to be targeted and coordinated with our enforcement efforts, and it really is just a supplement of other efforts. The encouragement piece is one that I'm really excited about. This neighborhood energizers. This is a toolkit of a whole bunch of different activities and art projects and ways to energize the neighborhood. Things that you might not think of as being directly related to speed and traffic management, but cumulatively have the effect. Things like little free library on the side of the road doesn't stop a driver from going faster, true. But when you have things like that, it helps contribute to an environment where you expect people to be out walking around, and that sort of thing does help slow traffic. Bird feeders hung in a tree. That circle in the bottom right, that's the painted one in the University District that I mentioned. So group bike rides, historic walking tours, parklets like in the upper left, things that generate just visual interest in your neighborhood help slow traffic and help people realize that, gee, people live here, people are recreating here, people are moving through here, not just, outside of cars, and I need to slow down and pay more attention. Evaluation is another E. I mentioned that there were about 2,500 crashes every year in Missoula. This map on the right represents all of the crashes. That's our crash map of the city from 2007 to 2018. And the red and orange dots are fatal and serious injuries. So as you can see, the problem is it's all over town. While the busy corridors stand out as being, the busy streets stand out as being visible. You can see Reserve Street and Russell Street and Brooks and Higgins on this map. The neighborhoods are not immune to crashes either. So this process looks at not just crash history, but speeds, volumes, sight triangles, which means how far can you see up the intersecting street, and how much time do you have then to make a decision as you approach the cross street. Public input is certainly a part of how we're doing this, and we expect this process to be iterative. Again, by doing cheaper solutions, we're able to adjust them as needed and as we find out what's working and what's not. The final E is equity. This slide shows kind of what that means. Equality is giving everyone a bike regardless of their situation. Equity is giving them a bike that fits their particular needs. And so we're trying to make sure we're not just applying the same solutions all across the city. We're also trying to adapt this program, or we're trying to prioritize some of the neighborhoods that, again, that have been historically underserved. We're taking a proactive approach to this too. We're going into streets, primarily our neighborhood greenways. We're collecting and analyzing the data that I mentioned, speeds, volumes, crashes, and other contextual cues. We're assessing not just the street that we're looking at, but neighboring streets to make sure that any solutions we propose are not going to just push problems to the adjacent streets. We're selecting appropriate interventions that include quick build traffic calming. They might just include stop signs. That's a tool that has historically not been on the table for us, but as Missoula gets bigger, it's becoming easier to put in stop signs. There's national guidance on when and how you can select a stop sign, and as our streets get busier, it becomes easier to put stop signs in. And then we're going to implement and evaluate, find out what's working, what's not, by collecting data and by getting feedback from the public. I mentioned the Franklin Street project last year and the Maurice project last year. The traffic calming elements of those were certainly much appreciated by the public. The aesthetics might not have been in one particular case, but for the most part, people really appreciated this. Sorry that this slide is a little wonky. I think it came over from a different program. But our neighborhood greenways, the list there is some of our priority ones are 4th Street. And let's ignore the column on the right. That's supposed to be a to and from, but it clearly got cut off. But 4th Street, Schilling, Benton Street, Burton Street, Gerald Ave, Grant Street, Kent Central, Park Street, Patty Creek and Ernest. Those are some of the priority ones. Let's see. Oh, Sherwood Alder in the west side. That's the other priority one. So I mentioned a proactive approach. This is our Schilling Greenway that is going. We're going to be installing this, I believe, as early as next week. Our crews are going to be out there. We're going to be, we looked at Schilling, and then we looked, like I mentioned, we looked a block in either direction. A block to the west is Eaton Street. That's a collector with a bus route on it. It's a priority sidewalk project that we're actually, it's being programmed right now and being designed the next couple months for construction the next year or two to see sidewalks on Eaton Street. So he said, okay, we're not going to do any traffic calming there because that's getting attention elsewhere. And then a block to the east is Johnson Street. And that's a collector, also a bus route, and that's what we want to be the through street. When we look at Schilling, that's our neighborhood greenway. We look at Kemp, we found very high crash history, higher volumes than we want to see, and much higher speeds than we want to see. And so we looked at it and said, what's happening here? And we found that Kemp actually is more wide open and direct than Johnson, the street that is supposed to be the one that is wide open and direct. And so we thought, okay, we want to divert some of that traffic from Kemp back onto Johnson. And so how do we do that? We can add some of these traffic circles. So we have a series of circles added. And we can also add some stop conditions, one by the park here at 10th Street and another at North Avenue, a 4-way stop at North Avenue will be installed. On Schilling, we also want to offset the traffic circles by a block, but we want to have those to, again, so that Kemp problems don't migrate to Schilling and so that Schilling stays comfortable as neighborhood greenway. And then we also are doing a series of bulb outs at the intersections of the east-west greenways, which are Central Ave, 12th Street, and 4th Street. And so again, those are, I want to say bulb outs, it's also paint and delineators. It's not changing curb lines. It's not an expensive project. Our workflow, this is more of an internal document, but it's still nice to be transparent about how we're looking at these. We ranked and prioritized our neighborhood greenways, largely based on their connectivity value and then some safety concerns. We collect baseline data, which included the speed, volumes, crash data, and intersection control and sight distance. Analyzed it and said, is the greenway functioning as intended? That means back to those operational goals. If not, can we identify a major contributing factor, speed, safety, volume? Do we want to look at stop control? Do we want to look at traffic calming? And then we develop a traffic calming plan, analyze it internally with engineers and maintenance folks and emergency services, do some public engagement, and then implement the program or implement the project and then evaluate it again afterwards. And did it meet our goals? And if so, then we document and publish the findings. And if not, then we start the process over again and go back into it. The other way that this program is working is reactive. So we have a portal for people to let us know what problems they're seeing in their neighborhood. We field their complaints, we call them back and say, hey, we got your complaint. Can you tell us more about it? Is it a certain time of day? Is there something, is it one tree that's blocking your visibility? Maybe we can just go out there and trim that up a little bit, or things like that. Or just we've learned that, no, there's a big problem. Recently, we've heard from some Lewis and Clark residents that there's a major problem near Sentinel High School at lunchtime and when Sentinel students get out at the afternoon. And so we've gone out and done observations, and sure enough, they're right. Things can be rowdy out there after when school gets out. So again, we collect and analyze data, and we assess if the street meets its intended function, and then develop a plan and kind of rank and prioritize those within our current workloads and funding. And then identify if there's ways that we can do some education and enforcement in the meantime as we put a project together, and then eventually get a project going on the ground. And we have a similar workflow for the reactive approach. So we have a scoring when we get a complaint. These are some of the things that these are the criteria that we use to score it: speed, volume, crashes, presence or absence of sidewalks and the ADA ramps. Pedestrian generators, is it reasonable to expect a lot of people walking on the street? Connectivity, what does the street get to, or is lack of connectivity the issue? River Road, for example, is kind of the only east-west street north of Wyoming, and that whole neighborhood doesn't have a ton of connectivity, so maybe that's an issue because there's only one way through that neighborhood. Equity, what is this? Is this a neighborhood that we need to put a little extra attention into? And then any other contextual considerations, like I mentioned, Sentinel High School, that's a issue that makes the streets next to it different than a similar looking street elsewhere in town. Our goals and timeline for this is our first year is going to be a lot of data collection and public engagement, and kind of coordinating internally to make sure we're all on the same page. So we have a limited implementation. I mentioned we're excited about Kemp and Schilling going in a couple weeks. There will likely be another couple projects that happen this year, but our goal is to get to at least 5 proactive implementation projects a year, and then as many reactive as we can and as need our attention. And we really think that this program, going back to the very beginning of the presentation, this program will address the frequency and, will help reduce the frequency and severity of crashes, slow down neighborhood traffic, reduce the amount of cut-through traffic in our neighborhood streets, on our residential streets. It'll encourage biking and walking, helping with those most split goals. Hopefully reduce crash severity specifically at uncontrolled intersections. We are addressing the increased traffic due to population growth and infill development. In the long run, these things are good things for our community, but we don't want our existing residents to face the disproportionate negative impacts of that infill growth. The reality is that we're living in a world with decreased traffic enforcement, and so this program is a way to help mitigate that. We are hopefully providing a clearer process to address citizen concerns than the one we had before, that included challenging and often expensive requirements for citizen-initiated traffic calming. We want this to be cheaper and easier and quicker for everybody. And again, coming back to that 25 miles an hour just might be too fast for a lot of our urban streets based on limited sight distance, missing curbs, neighborhood greenways, narrow right-of-ways. A street that we hear this on frequently is Missoula Ave up in the Rattlesnake. That's just one travel lane wide pretty much, and a lot of people biking and walking on it. And we go out and do speed counts. People are driving the speed limit or lower, but the speed limit is probably too fast for a street like that. So that's about the end of my presentation. I probably delivered that in about half the time that I did the last time I gave this. So I understand if there are questions, concerns, what have you, please feel free to go ahead.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate the in-depth and thorough coverage, and you did deliver that quickly. That was well done. Well, I would encourage you to, this is the first presentation at Forum by Ben, but he has taken this road on the show to Franklin and the Fort neighborhood, which is really fantastic. And we hope to bring this toolkit to each neighborhood. So we hope that you'll bring it into your neighborhood leadership team and bring back these ideas and think about what are some of the toolkits what are the tools or that could be used, or where are the problems or what are the issues that arise in your neighborhood, and how can we help you resolve those things. Any questions for Ben while we got him?
I had a different one. It was the comment, which was, Ben, you might want to mention that on that Engage Missoula page, there actually is, for that sort of reactive part of what you were talking about, that people have a form that they can actually fill out, and you can apply that. So, I mean, yeah.
Yep, there is a traffic complaint form linked on that where you can tell us about the issue in your neighborhood, and we will add it to the list. It's the other piece at the Engage Missoula page that I'm excited about is those neighborhood energizers. I think we have a running list of over 50 ways to that neighbors can take some initiative and do some of these soft improvements to help with traffic management. There's also the full paper that this presentation is based on, that kind of the research paper that we wrote on council's behest. And each of these neighborhood energizers talks about what it is, how much city permission, how much city involvement is needed to implement it, rough timeline and rough cost and rough amount of effectiveness from what we could gain, what we could learn from doing some quick research. There's also a link to further information about that Energizer in places.
Well, we will take that up in your leadership teams. I hope to pull that up, that Engage Missoula page, and at least just go through some of the toolkits that could be potentially available, as traffic calming is a regular discussion point in every neighborhood. And there are some really cool tools that Ben is rolling out. And when we say cost effective, Ben is able to do, Ben, I think you did mention this, but within budget, within existing budget, some of this work in Franklin of the Fort. So there's a lot of opportunity here for this program to grow and to be really effective. It does need community support and community engagement, and really hope, as you're the neighborhood leaders, that you'll bring that to the rest of the leadership teams. And we can get this on your agenda items, and we can talk this through and see if there are any of these tools that may be applicable or preferable for your neighborhood. And then we can work with Ben and his team about how to implement those, and maybe line this up for that potentially be a neighborhood grant request down the road. So do want to help engage you with this, and hopefully we can empower you with some funds as well. Any last thoughts or questions before we let Ben run?
Jennifer asked a question about accessing the map with Missoula crashes, and I'm sorry to say that that's not public facing right now. That map, the data comes from the police, make a report, and then all the reports go to the state, and then they try and scrub them of personally identifying information and then send them back to us planners to be able to use them. But there's still the potential for confidentiality concerns, and so I've been told that we can't share that information, that we can't share the map publicly. If people have concerns about a specific neighborhood or a street, you can certainly let me know, and I can kind of check the data for you and let you know what we find. The other thing there is we don't even have our 2020 data yet. We get our data annually in June or July, and so we're always a bit behind. But it's a little bit frustrating for neighbors. They see a crash outside their door and they say, hey, this is dangerous, what's happening here? And we go and look and say, well, there hasn't been a crash since 2009. And they say, BS, I saw one 2 weeks ago. We don't have any way to access that. So it just is, this is more of a tool to look at trends over time for us, and to look at what sorts of crashes are happening where. Are they rear ends? Are they side swipes? Are they right angle, T-bone crashes? Are there a lot happening at one intersection for some reason? But we can't go in and respond to every crash as it happens.
Colin, could I ask one quick question of Ben? Thank
No,
you.
Painter, you're not allowed.
It's good to have standards. So Ben, you're well aware that Lewis and Clark and Rose Park have both been seeking a resolution to what they perceive as a problem for the kids crossing from Lewis and Clark into the Washington neighborhood. And we've met with you and Aaron a couple times about that. So I'm not really sure where the presentation you just gave fits into that resolution. What Lewis and Clark and Rose Park neighborhoods are asking for is a lowering of the speed limit on South Avenue, which I believe from Higgins to Bancroft now is 30 to 25, and then also adding of a couple of crosswalks. And if that's a money thing, we could probably raise the money, but would you perhaps address that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mike. So school zones, when I presented this to council about a month ago, they said, okay, thank you for this information. A lot of great work here. Keep going with this program. We love it. But what about school zones? Can't we, that's one place where our local government, especially council, has the jurisdiction to change speed limits in a way that we don't across the rest of the city. So what council has asked us to go back and do is develop a school zone policy where we look at them kind of uniformly. What we've been doing is kind of on a case-by-case basis. We've been trying to, a principal or a student resource officer will get in touch with us. We'll look at one particular issue at one school. We'll make some changes. And then the next one will come in a year and a half later. We'll forget what we've done at the previous school and we'll do something that contradicts it. And then the first school says, hey, how come you did this for them and not for us? And so what we're doing is we're looking at all the schools together. We're going to develop a policy, bring that back to council and say, here, this is what we recommend, go forth and do it. Our hope is to have this by the time school resumes next fall. I don't know that, I can't promise that we'll hit that deadline, but that's what we're shooting for. I certainly think there's opportunity to lower the speed limit on South Avenue. I can say that that's something that we're definitely looking into. One of the pieces here is Jeff Miller apparently gave a great presentation to council back in December, and I didn't learn about it until a couple weeks ago. And so that's one of the reasons why Lewis and Clark and Rose Park have not heard from me since that.
Ben, I know you have enough to do with your job, but so if you would let Rose Park and Lewis and Clark neighborhood councils know what our opportunity is to continually comment on that process, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much, Mike, Ben. Great questions, great follow-up. And again, Ben will be coming into your leadership team meetings as you open the door for Ben. So hopefully you will. We'd love to see these toolkits rolled out, and certainly this summer is a really great first round of this. But there are things that we can act on outside of that. There are, as Ben said, if you pop open Engage Missoula and take a look at this, there are things we can do this summer in your neighborhood that you can do to help, some of the traffic calming in your neighborhood.
Colin, Jennifer still has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Jennifer.
Sorry.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Ben, thanks so much. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah, my pleasure. And if people think of questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm going to drop my email address in the chat also. Or you can get in touch through that Engage Missoula page. And as Ray mentioned, there's a form on there. It gets emailed to me and a couple other folks. Yeah, let me know. Keep bugging me, Mike. We'll get to you.
Don't worry, Ben. We will be at your door.
Good for it, Ben.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Well, with that, thank you so much, Ben. We'll turn you loose.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. Well, we next on our agenda is our neighborhood improvement grants, and we had a great committee. I'm happy to present this. Our committee include Heidi, Colleen, Ray, Randall, Kelly, Alex Ruggiero, and myself. Alex, unfortunately, Alex was nominated or volunteered. I think he volunteered. You can ask the rest of the committee if that's. Alex is unable to attend tonight. I could ask another presenter, another member from the committee, if anyone would like to present. Otherwise, I can just click through this slideshow. Please fill in the blanks. I will do my best to present.
All right, go for it.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. I'm sure you and Ray and Heidi has volunteered to pipe up and share some context. So please do. It was a team effort. All right. So our neighborhood improvement grants, this is just kind of a brief overview of the purpose of our neighborhood improvement grants. This year's committee, we did rework the rubric, the scoring rubric, to try and simplify the application process and create a more clear scoring metric that I think we achieved on some marks, and we also know that there's some edits and some tweaks that we certainly can make moving forward. This fund is annually is $20,000. It's been $20,000 for quite some time. It is our hope to put in for a request for an increase in neighborhood grants regularly each year. In a forum, most leadership teams have discussed this and have stated a support and endorsement of this idea that we go in and request greater funding for the neighborhood improvement grants to create a little more independence, autonomy, and self-empowerment of neighborhoods. And we really see really cool projects that really focus on creating community, building connection, and a great understanding of our local government and the policies and plans that affect our neighborhoods. So with that, we'll get going. Here is our timeline. Generally, just a brief overview of this is generally the application period was open for eight full weeks. This year was open for 7 weeks and 5 days. This next year, I think we've all agreed that we're going to shift this timeline forward, and the grant application will open at the very beginning of the calendar year. So January 1, you'll have an application open, and it'll be open for 3 months. We didn't get great participation in our application workshops, and we will be hosting a pre-application process just to help folks to make sure that we're ensuring that we receive qualified applications. So you'll see some of this moving forward. Tonight, our real push here is to present these grant applications, these projects, the recommendations from the committee, and to receive a motion and a vote in approval of funding those projects. Some of the details, this is all available on our website. The application it's a fillable PDF, and it's all very readily available, but some of the stipulations here about what cannot be funded is right there. And again, so these are the 8 applications we did receive this year. A total of $37,781 applied for out of a fund of $20,000. So we can see that there is certainly a need, an interest, and a readiness to apply for these funds. And so anyways, something to be thoughtful of. I think if we open up the schedule, the timeline, and shift it further in the calendar year, and we provide some of the toolkits that we're working on right now, I feel very confident that we'll see even more competitive grant application cycles coming forward, more interest and more readiness to come in for large grants. Our scoring rubric, we did talk about this, used to be a weighted scoring rubric. I don't want to spend too much time going through this, but you'll see that the vast majority of our weight here is left in community impact, feasibility, and citizen support and participation. So really that's the kind of the bread and butter of that. Some fine tuning can be done moving forward, but I think the committee made some really great progress this year with this rubric. And with that, I think I already mentioned the committee members. Again, thanks so much. These committee members participated in 3 meetings and spent 2 weeks digging through PDFs and insufficiently IT'd up cloud links and having us print off forms, and a really great group. We had a really fantastic committee. I do hope people will return, and hope that we bring in new folks this next year. It was a really great process, and we are meeting again once more to really fine tune the process and come up with recommendations about how to ensure that our FY22 project process and projects are as strong as possible. I'm really excited that they proposed that as a follow through. It's really fantastic. And with that, I'd love any help or assistance from any committee members that really would open this up. And Heidi, I know you're on the line as well. The projects that we were recommending for funding, the scoring committee wrestled with and reviewed all applications, and with that, decided to fully fund 3 projects. The final 2 projects that left us a small balance, and we were it was a unanimous determination of all the committee that we split the balance of the remaining funds between the final placed projects. Would anyone like to talk through, or does anyone have any questions about each of these projects? Colleen, I see you're on my screen. I'm sure you would want to share a little bit about the Bancroft Pond.
Sure.
I know Bert's here to talk about Grant Creek, and I don't think we have anyone from Franklin the Fort, but it's unfortunate Ben just left because you just heard a lot about some of the work they'll be doing in Franklin the Fort. But Colleen, could I turn it over to you to share a little bit? Thanks.
Sure. Bancroft Ponds has been a spot in the city that was actually a dump site for street repairs and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, the people in this area decided that we should have a pond. Well, it is now, and it became the Children's Fishing Pond. Well, now it's called Bancroft Ponds, and it is now a land conservation park in the middle of the city. We have tried to keep the park to be as natural as possible. We're donated money in a couple years ago from the Audubon Society to start a birding area, which the city helped us plant, and so we've been working with that. But so we kind of want to do it's always been for education, and so our last thing has been to have this stone placement amphitheater for particularly our neighborhood schools, the high school. In fact, they were there today. And so were the little kids this morning, to just have a place where people can come, maybe have a meeting, and just be in a more natural setting in the middle of the city. And so that's primarily what our whole emphasis has been on the ponds, is to be natural.
Thank you, Colleen. Oh, anyone else? Sorry if I interrupted someone. I heard that. Yeah, this is the third and final round of funding for the Bancroft Pond project. There's been signage in the past, and this is to finish the outdoor classroom, which has been a long, collaborative, and hard work by the neighborhood. So it's really fantastic to see that project fully funded and wrapping up. Franklin to the Fort placemaking together speaks in regards to and works around, unless are there any committee members that would like to speak on this? Heidi or Ray, or if anyone would like to, I'm happy to present though. Okay, I'll fire away. They have developed a plan to work in conjunction with the work and to leverage the work that the NTMP is doing in their neighborhood, and to build around a Missoula in Motion neighborhood streets project that we're helping to develop for August 8th in Franklin of the Fort. And it's a series of traffic calming tools that'll go in there, and also some work that coordinates with the efforts of Missoula in Motion. So really a really well coordinated, broad, wide-spanning project, a very ambitious project, but very exciting to see Franklin the Fort work to pull together a traffic calming project that leverages the existing policies and plans that are going into place this summer, and that should have lasting impact for an issue that is a very top priority or a major concern for the neighborhood. Bert, I'd be remiss if I didn't pass the mic to you to chat about Grant Creek traffic signal boxes.
thank you so much. And thank you to the Neighborhood Council for its support of the traffic signal box beautification program that's run largely by the Missoula Public Arts Committee. So when you end up making the award for these traffic signal boxes, the work is all done through a process and that's run by the Public Arts Committee, and you kind of don't have to worry about the success. They've got a long record of figuring out how to call for art, how to evaluate the art, and how to work with the artists to make the ones that are selected successful in getting the signal boxes beautified. One of the agreements that the Transportation Department made with the Public Arts Committee is that, look, guys, you go ahead and do your little cutesy stuff, but when we have to come in and redo the streets, don't come whining to us when your beautified box gets turned into a stainless steel industrial thing. So no whining. And we lost 4 of the beautified signal boxes on North Reserve during last fall's maintenance, and a new one was added. So this money will allow 2 signal boxes to be rewrapped. They were wrapped with vinyl, and it's a little less expensive just to rewrap them than to go through the whole process again. So that's being done with Neighborhood Council unspent funds. And then the $4,500 is going to pay for 3 signal boxes to go through the whole process, which is $1,500 each. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bert. Yeah, fantastic synopsis and summary of that project. And continue pushing through the Rattlesnake Outdoor Classroom. Heidi, I saw you post also on camera. I don't know if you just turned your camera on, or is that an interest to share?
I can talk about it.
Okay.
So this is going to upgrade. I guess there is an existing outdoor classroom that is in pretty bad shape. So this will actually upgrade the space, and there is quite a bit of neighborhood support and also already neighborhood investment in this project. There's a lot of different entities that are providing funding to this, and I guess I could talk about both of them together since we split the funding. Is that okay?
That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
And I maybe a little bit of the rationale of just equally splitting it between the 2 schools, and then the last funded project. I can't see the screen anymore. Colin, what was it called? I wrote down.
Sorry, Paxson is the Paxson PTA project. For Paxson Elementary's playground, phase 2 of their 3-phase project. Heidi, have we lost you? Heidi, it looks like we've lost you here.
Oh, did I freeze up?
Yeah, sorry, Heidi, you froze up. But do you want to take another crack at it? And then we'll
maybe if my internet sticks with me.
Okay.
I don't know where we were at. So the last project that was partially funded was the Paxson playground project. It's part of a, I guess, 3-phase upgrade of the existing playground and field to deal with especially drainage.
Okay, Heidi, you're muted again. Okay, well, I in the interest of time, I think while we've had a series of fun tech issues, but Heidi would give a fantastic synopsis that I'll hop in and just do my best to carry forward. The Paxson Playground has identified a series of safety issues, and really in regards to flooding. Some of the pictures that they shared are pretty disheartening, to say the least. But it's a playground upgrade, and so if anyone else would, I know Heidi was going to speak about our attempt or determination to split the funds, but part of this was out of the scale of the projects that were coming forward, and also the commitment of funding that was available, that there were funding opportunities for these projects to be backfilled by anonymous donors. And so this is how they scored. Colleen, Ray, Heidi as able. Kelly, anyone else would like to fill
What-
in any other thoughts? Or Randall?
Yeah, I
Sorry.
think maybe Jennifer, if we could quickly respond to your question that you brought up in the chat. One of the applications was incomplete, and it was just ridiculous that you try to assess something when they don't even answer a good portion of the questions, don't provide a budget, and so on. So that was very quickly taken off. Let's see. There was another one which is asking for $6,000 out of, I think, a close to a $1.5 million project. And it seemed like with all the other sponsors that it was kind of a moot point to have neighborhood council funds go to that particular project when there were so many other funders available, and that it would be better to give it to a neighborhood rather than to a large downtown project with, as I said before, a lot of other sponsors. And then the third one was something which really it was a request to, I'm trying to think of a polite way to say it, that was going to help a particular small area, but would have very little, be very of basically no help to really other members of the city of Missoula. And we felt like that was, and nobody gave it a very good score. Let's just put it that way. It was scored.
We did, yeah, and I'll just follow up. I think Ray, thanks, and Jennifer, great question. Ray, thank you for addressing those three projects. Just on that last project, the key issue that we realized is it was identified as an HOA project, and HOA reoccurring and regular maintenance to serve a private homeowners association with little to no public benefit, some public access, but minimal public access. And the committee determined that did not seem to speak into to merit funding or to be in the spirit of the neighborhood improvement grants. They did not score well. We also had some issues with those three applications in terms of completing the application and leaving parts either incomplete or insufficiently answered. And we will be following up with all grantees that will be awarded. We'll be meeting with them, and I'll also be following up and sitting down or offering a sit down with every applicant who did not get awarded, and to see if there's a way for us to troubleshoot potentially those things in the future, or just to give them feedback. Anything else? I'll just return to this slide real quick and say, so these are so this caps us off at $20,000. Our next steps, I did mention at the beginning of this to say that our scoring committee is going to have a follow-through meeting to talk about how we can fine-tune the application, make it a little more accessible, make it more clear how what the scoring rubric is and how that ties directly to each question. And from there, I'll just go through the calendar real quick. Is we're going to go through a forum vote tonight. We'll be looking for following questions and discussion. We'll be looking for a vote. From there, if we do get approval from forum tonight, this would go to ANF on June 9th. City Council, hopefully City Council approval on June 14th. And then contracts, all the project management packets, quarterly reports, and budget, ongoing forms, and any of the sit downs and meetings to make sure the projects are well staffed and ready to go will commence after that in June. So it's a tight month. And again, we are, as we talk about continuous improvement and a new model in the future, we are going to be shifting this calendar forward, opening it up for longer times, and creating some gates to ensure we get quality projects. And with that, I'd like to just open up for any questions or discussions. And I also should just give one last chance for any committee members who dedicated a lot of time and energy going through this. Any other last thoughts or any points that we didn't discuss that we didn't hit on that you would like to share? Okay, well, I think we've covered. Okay, well then with that, I will open it. We'll open it up. Any questions from the forum, or anyone have any questions about the projects? Any specifics about any project, or about the process, or where we're headed? Okay, well, I realize it's 7:23 and we need to push forward. So with that, I will ask does anyone have a motion to approve the scoring committee's recommendations for projects to be funded for our fiscal year 21 neighborhood improvement grant awards?
So I'll go ahead and make the motion. Somebody else will need to second it, which is to approve these the grants that were presented for it to be approved. Yeah.
And I second that.
Thank you, Colleen. Do we have all approve? If we get a verbal or a thumbs up, okay, we have all in favor. Okay, okay, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Really appreciate everyone's time and energy with that. Really, I'm excited to see where we are able to grow the neighborhood improvement grants and the shape that we can take to ensure that we're getting really great participation across the city and a real diversity of projects. And so I'm very optimistic about that. As you know, I'm optimistic. Okay, with that, we are running short on time, and I know that I want to be mindful of timeline here. We were going to cover our bylaws and orientation packets, and I would like to make sure that we can discuss the remaining forum budget that is sitting out there, and I think those are the most crucial elements that we need to discuss. And so bylaws, as you are well aware, following our strategic assessment, some of the recommendations that came forward, they speak to systems, toolkits that we need to develop, and also standardization across the neighborhood council system. And like all good organizations, it's good to lift up the mirror and just do a quick SWOT analysis and understanding of what's working well, what's not working, and where are there real opportunities to create more representation, greater participation. We have some really strong neighborhood councils, of which many of you are a part of, and you can see that we have some missing neighborhood councils that are really that either COVID has been difficult or have never really taken off. And we are really doing our best to try and build the tools to help get people in and a representative body in each neighborhood, and to really make sure that you're, as neighborhood leaders, really do feel empowered to help make your neighborhood feel and be in keeping with the vision and values that you and your neighbors have for your neighborhood. Missoula has really distinct neighborhoods, and we want to allow for that those distinct feelings and flavors, but we do want to create a solid foundation and some of the tools to move forward. And so with that, I'm going to try and pull up the bylaws. We have been working on some bylaws. These bylaws are they are following our recommendations. Our legal department and many others. These will be coming. Oh, my internet's unstable, so sorry if I skip out here at any point. These bylaws will be moving forward to each neighborhood leadership team for review, edits, thoughts, any suggestions. We want participation in this process. It is our expectation that these are a minimum of the bylaw, so it's a bylaw template, meaning if you're part of a neighborhood leadership team or a neighborhood council that wants to adopt greater or additional components, that would be fantastic. These bylaws, we have tried to keep this as streamlined and simplified as possible. And so in interest time, instead of going through a full document with you today, I'll just share with you that we will send that out. And the other piece that's coming forward is I'm actively working on a neighborhood orientation binder. and a neighborhood orientation, some how-to guides. Those how-to guides are everything from starting a meeting to neighborhood energizers to linking up with some of, and our term of energizers, we imagine those, as I've been on the stump in your meetings, we imagine those neighborhood energizers to be things like our neighborhood cleanups, tree planting projects with Marie Anderson, the city forester, I'm abbreviating her title, and Karen Sippy with Trees of Missoula. So it's working with Ben Weiss and Missoula in Motion. And so it's the idea of leveraging and building off of existing policies and plans and really creating some real momentum in the neighborhood. So both the bylaws will come forward this next month. And from the bylaws, I will be continuing some work on our orientation binder and our how-to guides. How and when? Okay, so with that, I apologize. I recognized our timeline said 7:30, and Ben was quicker than usual, but we have drawn through some time. So with that, I just want to open this up to any questions. The first question I received from Carol is how and when can we access the bylaw proposals? The bylaw template is going to go out. You should be receiving that this next week. So every neighborhood leadership team will receive this bylaw template this next week. And we really want neighborhood leadership teams to take some time. So every member of your leadership team will receive that bylaw template. It's a very basic, it is simplified. It is streamlined, and again, the idea is that this is the baseline, the minimum template. It is the minimum bylaw that can be approved. If you have edits, suggestions, we're open to that. And so we have been working on this, and I'm very open and excited to see any potential feedback or thoughts you have. I do want to, again, this is, it will come with the orientation guide and some of those how-to packets, I think, complete that packet. Any other thoughts or questions? Again, I realize I'm flying through this, and I had intended to discuss each element, but I do recognize we are very short on time. So any thoughts or questions before I send those out to each leadership team? I do plan on meeting with folks. And of course, I always say this, and I know you're probably tired of saying this, but I'm very accessible. So if you do want to shoot me an email or give me a ring, I'm happy to come meet with you. It's sunny, it's beautiful. If you want to meet outside, socially distanced, or you want to do a Zoom, we're all practiced at that. I'm happy to hop on the horn. We can have a phone call. Any thoughts or ideas you have? If you have any thoughts or ideas about either the orientation packet, the how-to guides, or the bylaws, let me know.
Call it a quick one. Is if you could, with the bylaws, sort of almost like an executive summary, just a quick sort of overview of what has changed, what hasn't, from bylaws that were out before.
Thanks, okay. Ray. Yeah. The kind of the brief overview is we try to create consistency across the intention is to create consistency across all leadership teams. We did not have the same bylaws across all neighborhood councils. And so one of the intentions here is to ensure that we have the same at least template, at least the same framework in each across all councils. There is language that speaks to that is pulled from the origins of Missoula neighborhoods and the framing of Missoula neighborhoods to be representative of neighborhoods of the population that is in your neighborhood. So that's part of obviously how the founding of Missoula neighborhoods, and in keeping with the assessment and speaking with all residents and participants in the assessment and with the forum, since we've discussed that. And so it's really, I would say the most key, the most important component is clarity and consistency. So I think you'll see that. The other piece is to shift some pieces out of the bylaws that don't need to be in the bylaws and to push things into an orientation guide that really help residents as you join a neighborhood leadership team or you want to get involved in the neighborhood council to really orient and to provide as a compass. So just like as you join a board, you get a board packet, and you really have a real firm grasp of what are your roles, responsibilities, what are the timelines and the calendars and so forth. So it is, I would frame it as it is a sort of, ultimately it's a package deal. That's the goal. I hope I answered with that executive summary. Does anyone else have any thoughts or questions at this point before I push forward? Okay. I realize we are short on time. So we were going to discuss the request for community forum budget. And so what we're looking at here is, and I'll just try and pull this up. I'm sorry, I got to bounce from spreadsheet to spreadsheet here. The forum has every year is funded $2,200 from the general fund. We get carryover funds. You receive carryover funds of $5,000 that come from the neighborhood council funds, which are allotted. Those neighborhood council funds they're slated to have a slight increase this next year, very minor, but a slight increase to move up. And it's about $32,000 that will go to neighborhood council funds. Whatever is unspent from that at the end of the fiscal year, the end of June 30th this year, gets swept. Sorry, Carol, do you have your hand up? Or, oh, no, okay. I'm ready for engagement. So if you have questions, please feel free to interrupt. But if you receive any of the neighborhood council funds that are left unspent, they get swept and go back to the general fund. From there, we're able to retain from a resolution in I believe 2007 as a resolution that allows us to retain $5,000. So we're able to carry over $5,000. It's reallocated funds, and that goes back into the coffers into the community forum's budget. So at the beginning of this year, community forum started with $7,200. What we have allocated so far, and this is not the spreadsheet I wanted to share. Here's a spreadsheet I wanted to share. Okay, so again, community forum funds, $2,200, reallocated carryover funds, $5,000. We started the beginning of the year at $7,200. Early in the year, forum agreed and provided $4,000 budgeted for UM MPA students to do some work. We were able to, that work was able to be done with $2,000. So we were, and everyone feeling good. Everyone was well paid for their work. We were able to find and license some tools, some GIS tools within the city of Missoula that we were able to free up that $2,000. So where that leaves us is $5,200 in the forum budget. It is my request that I would really like to see the completion of our orientation packets, our how-to guides, some of the recommendations from our strategic assessment call for more communication framework work. It includes our website, that includes in trying to work on to engage Missoula, create more dynamic ways that neighborhoods can engage with each other and pull in new participants. So my hope here, and I don't know if these are my notes here, but this really, what this request is for $4,000, and the request would be to repurpose the $2,000 that was allotted for MPA students, and to allocate an additional $2,000 of the remaining FY21 funds. It'd be a total of $4,000 that would free up money that otherwise will be able to carry over. So I was going to use our travel and training budget and our professional services budget to pay for some services, and finances made me aware that my funding can carry over and the forum funding will not. And so this is, I wouldn't say creative accounting, but a creative solution to ensure that we can maximize the benefits to the neighborhood council system. So we can free up some of those funds that otherwise would have come from staff travel and training funds, which obviously we're unable to use, and some professional services funds. So that would allow us to then use that money to help with some of the communications work that comes forward. That does leave us a balance of $1,200 in the forum funds that will get swept. So again, you'll get another $2,200 will come back in, and then carryover funds from the neighborhood council will come forward with another $8,000. before I see people leaving, or I hear people leaving. I'm counting bodies. We've got 8 before you leave, please. As long as we have a quorum. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions about that? I hope I tried to rush through that. I apologize if that felt rushed. But any thoughts or questions? I want to be as transparent about my request. And again, my hope is to just try and maximize the toolkits. And admittedly, Kelly and I are doing our best with the tools and skills that we have, but we really could use some contracted services to ensure we're able to build some of these toolkits that we're very excited about, and we hope that you could be of use to you. Jennifer.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
I think they're all hearing the same thing, which is we're either going to use it or we're going to lose it. So let's use it, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Very pragmatic. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Could we have so I believe we would need 2 motions. One would be to repurpose the previously allocated $2,000 from the MPA grad students to be used for contracted services. And then another motion, which would be for allocating $2,000 for contracted services.
Don't move on the first question.
Okay, we've got a motion. We have a second with Robert Schultz. Do we have all in favor?
I
Okay.
move on the second proposal.
Okay, thank you. We got
funds.
okay.
I'll second that.
Leah for a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, thank you so much. I was a little. Thank you. I really appreciate the support and the work that we're going to be able to get done with this. So with that, I know that we're running short on time. A setting of a meeting guide. We were going to talk through the kind of the timeline. The real key thing here is that this guide was sent out over email. The real hope here is we've received some neighborhood leadership teams request as many as 6 to 7 speakers to come with 3 days notice. And really the key thing here is that's just maybe not feasible, or at least a professional courtesy would be so we can give some notice to whether it's someone from the fire department or either within the city or outside of the city. We are certainly happy to help pull speakers in, and we'd love to get more connections of those built. I really would love to be able to line those up further in advance. It gives that professional a little more time to prepare their presentation and really speak to and with the neighborhood, rather than showing up and trying to put it together last moment. And so that guide came out. I just wanted to cover that. The other thing we're going to talk about were the neighborhood cleanups. Just want to let you know that we did have 9 neighborhoods that participated. They were quite successful. We have received some interest from some other neighborhoods that did not participate that would like to do one again this fall. I'd like to just put it out to see if there's interest and where we're at midsummer to see if is trash coming back in. We had great support. Garden City Compost, a wing of the city, and Republic Services. Republic Services donated significant support with this project, and we're very supportive and appreciative of the work that volunteers put in. So really, we saw some really great successes throughout the city. And just so you know, East Missoula, not part of our neighborhood council system, but they filled 2 dumpsters and then had 5 more loads that they were able to take to the dump. So some neighborhoods, I mean, this is really, really helpful, a great way to start the season and to minimize some of the environmental degradation, and also just to feel like we're taking care of our community. The other things that we were going to discuss before I turn it over to Heidi, traffic circles. We only have a handful of traffic circles that are still unadopted. If you live near a traffic circle, there are 3 neighborhoods that currently have hardscaped traffic circles. If you live near a traffic circle and would like to adopt them, we have some funds available. We are trying to use these funds to help make sure that they're water-wise, garden space that they beautify while creating traffic calming. So again, speaking to some of the work that Ben's doing, we're going to be able to use some of those funds to help with some of the work that Ben is doing with the NTMP and some of those light engineered solutions. So whether that's these mandalas or really planters, we really focus on greening these spaces. So do get the word out on that. And then lastly, we discussed a survey. Our survey is coming forward. Really excited to have that launch. That's going to be launched open this summer. That will be presented at the end of the summer, early fall. And we are also lining up. Well, it's a little early, but I'll say we're also lining up a connection with the university geography program for students to help with our neighborhood profiles and do in-depth dives. So we're building coursework that'll be reoccurring and iterative for future work. So that kind of dovetails with surveys. And with that, I'm sorry I've rushed through this. I feel everyone who knows I did my best. I really did my best to get through as best I could. And with that, I'd like to just turn it over to Heidi West. This is our council report, and then we're going to go to questions and comments before public comment. Thank you.
Hopefully my internet will stay with me for like 5 minutes. So I think one of the big things that's happened recently is that the West Broadway corridor planning kicked off with a week of in-person and virtual charrettes. So this is kicking off a process that's going to take probably another 9 months or so to really create a bit more of a defined vision for the West Broadway corridor, and then that is going to be adopted into the downtown master plan, which exists already. Part of the reason for this detailed master planning process is that this is an area where the city obviously, with the help of the MRA, has acquired several properties, and currently one of those facilities is serving to house folks that need a safe space to be and reduce COVID risks. But in the future, that property has a lot of potential to provide all sorts of community needs. And so we're trying to kind of define what that vision is. So we're prepared to redevelop that space. I think a similar process that's happening right now is some planning around the White Pine Sash site, which is on the north side and used to be a state Superfund site. The clean portion of that was just sold, was purchased by the city and then sold by the city with a basically a development agreement in place that it's going to provide some needs that we've highlighted through years and years of community planning on the north side. So it will have a permanent affordable home ownership component, and then also will have a pretty significant child care component, which is something we obviously desperately need in Missoula and also very much need on the north side. And then I think the other thing I just wanted to highlight, and then I'll open it up to questions, is that we just had an update on our 10-year plan to end homelessness, and kind of where I believe we're 9 years into that plan, and we've really hit some big milestones as a community on how we all work together, and some really exciting things are still in the works, and there's a whole community conversation around where we're going next. Yeah, do you guys have any questions about other council related things? Or not, whatever. Ask me whatever.
And I do want to just note, I dropped in the Engage. I know I flashed them briefly on Engage Missoula, but there's really great documents on there. I know that you do. It is a really fantastic tool to do a deeper dive, and it also provides the link directly to who's listening, right? Who's working on that project. And these staff members, they are spending a lot of time and energy on these projects. They would love to hear from you. They really would like to hear from you if you have thoughts and questions. And then it also makes clear when it's sort of like double dutch, like the ropes are turning, when can you jump in, right? And that public comment is made available right on Engage Missoula. And so as you'll know when to jump in, and it locks to the project. So it stays, it records to the project. So it's a really cool tool. I know we plug it regularly, but it is something the city, we are really happy to be able to share, and hope it is utilized well. Okay.
No questions?
Heidi, do you know who's going to run for the Brian's city council spot?
Yeah, I believe there's 3 people that are running for Brian's spot. There is Jennifer Savage, Sheena, and I'm forgetting her last name, and then I haven't met the 3rd candidate, so I'm not sure who that is. I haven't checked, which I should. But yeah, there are people gearing up to run, so that's pretty exciting.
That is, and thank you for your service.
Thanks.
This is a great opportunity for, I'll piggyback on this conversation to let you know that we are the Missoula neighborhoods. I'm working with the Missoula League of Women Voters, and also hope to work with Forward Montana to host candidate forums. And so I'd like to see, one of the intentions is we'd like to see candidate forums for all the wards that are opening up. So that would be coming after the primaries. So that would be looking at I believe it's the back half of September is when that is, or the first week of October is when, the first couple weeks of October is when we've identified when these. So it'd be post primary, following kind of the standard process here. We're going to open this process, or kind of reassess and reevaluate how the process is done. And the Missoula League of Women Voters would also like to host a mayoral forum as well. So perhaps there's going to be a place for forum members to be at a table to help discuss what that process looks like. I'm kind of, as it's been made clear to me, I build a lot of the framework and do a lot of the heavy lifting. And then, but we do have the league to come in and to vet questions, ask questions, time, and actually facilitate the event itself. So I think there is a role for citizens from the forum to help with these candidate forums, and I do hope that we can be the body to host that. So more information is coming forward, but I've just had a few meetings about that over the last 2 weeks. So yeah. And with that, any thank you, Heidi, for the update. The last questions is public comment. Are there any public comment, any non-agenda items that we haven't covered that we should cover?
Colin, I just wanted to give a advertisement for Missoula Neighborhood Watch. Tony Rollin, who is one of our regular representatives to Community Forum, is also the chair of Missoula Neighborhood Watch, and we're trying to develop a representative from each of the neighborhood councils to represent Neighborhood Watch. It's mostly informational, but it does have representatives from both Missoula County Sheriff's Office and Missoula City PD. And so I with your permission, I'd send out the last newsletter that Tony put together and invite all the neighborhood councils to appoint somebody from their jurisdiction to attend, or at least be a contact point for Missoula Neighborhood Watch. Missoula PD, I think, could use our support and would appreciate our support, and so would Missoula County Sheriff's Office. So that's one of the reasons I attended tonight, is to give a little sales pitch for Missoula Neighborhood Watch. So with your permission, I'll send you some information and you can forward it to the neighborhood council representatives as you see fit.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I do sit on the Missoula Neighborhood Watch board, and I've been working with Officer Ryan Kimura and with Tony Rollin to see that we can get presentations built, and so we're sort of waiting for them to pass the ball back to me. So, Mike, I hope I appreciate anything you're pulling that we can start getting it forward. I do know that Tony did present to a neighborhood that requested his some more information that's in the county. So outside of that, I was able to help make that connection, but we obviously don't serve, we serve the city. So yeah, that would be great. I would love to see those connections be made. Really cool services, and it's great to have both the sheriff and the city police department involved in that. Thanks, Mike. Anyone else? It's the waning bits of light. We are a little over time. I appreciate your patience. I'm sure there's stomachs grumbling. And with that, I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight, and we look forward to presenting these. Kelly and Marty are in city council chambers, making this possible while I'm watching a baby monitor right here. So I really appreciate them, the unsung heroes of tonight, making it possible for us to do this. And thank you to MCAT. Obviously, we're also on YouTube Live. So we'll continue with this format and look forward to seeing you at your neighborhood meetings sometime soon. That everyone have a great night.
Bye.
Thank you.
So much. Good night.